It's 7:09. Well, the shock news has only just been officially confirmed. David Bowie is dead. One of the most loved, most admired, most influential pop stars this country has ever produced. An original singer, songwriter, producer, arranger, painter, actor. A man whose every move has been hung on since the 1970s. I'm joined on the line now by our arts editor, Will Gompertz. He was a giant, Will, was he not?
Absolutely, Nick. I mean, I think you could say, along with Elvis Presley, the Beatles, the Stones, David Bowie was one of the very few people who defined what pop music is and could be. And he started off really from an arts point of view, his performance artist, and he mimed some of the songs for T-Rex back in the early days before breaking through on his own, and then sort of established himself as this sort of transgender type character. Nobody quite knew who this thin white duke was, and he developed this concept of glam rock off the back of T-Rex and really made such an impression. He had Hunky Dory in 71, but made a huge impression with Ziggy Stardust in 1972. And as you say, at that point, he redefined what pop was.
Yeah, in many ways, as much an artist with a capital A as a pop star, influenced by that time he had at art college, as much about the look, the mood, as well as simply some amazing lyrics and extraordinary music.
Absolutely. I mean, he's hanging out with people like Merce Cunningham, the sort of avant-garde the dancer, Robert Rauschenberg, John Cage. These are all massive influences from sort of the avant-garde art world, who David Bowie brought into the pop music sphere. Quite, that was a hugely revolutionary thing to do. And where pop was quite macho beforehand, wasn't it? It was about pop and rock and lots of girls running around throwing their knickers at pop stars. David Bowie took a completely different approach. Pop, for him, was an art form. It was a form of performance, and he was quite extraordinary the way he could just transmute between different characters on stage between our eyes, with his own weird eyes, of course, with those different colours which came out of an accident when he was a kid. But it was the way he could communicate, the way he was so clearly an individual within a world of sort of pop where people can be slightly manufactured. You had somebody like David Bowie who was completely and utterly his own man.
A man who actually earned his own exhibition at the V&A. This is not just a guy whose records you kept. You would go and see the Bowie memorabilia because of the influence he'd had.
Well, the extraordinary thing about him, not only he defined what pop could and should be in the early 70s, but as we said before, it's the people he worked with. He was working with artists and designers. He worked with Alexander McQueen, of course, but he also then the way he reinvented himself is something. He was a classic postmodern artist. That he didn't settle for what he was. He didn't become an aging artist who became sort of a parody tribute act to himself. He moved on. He started with glam rock. He moved on to art rock. In the 80s, he moved into synth pop, and then he developed into this sort of this legendary figure who wouldn't give any interviews, who stayed away, who lived in New York, and would produce albums. In 2013, he dropped the next day out of nowhere. Nobody expected it, and what was quite brilliant about that, of course, in a typically Bowie-esque way, he was using modern media in a way that other artists weren't, and it just appeared online. This new album, everybody went wow, and it was kind of wowish. And of course, he's literally only just released Black Star. He's got a musical on Broadway at the moment or just off Broadway called Lazarus. So I mean, if you look back at his career, the thing about David Bowie was not only was he extraordinary, not only was he incredibly adventurous with what he took on, he was prolific. He made a lot of music. He produced a lot of music. He acted quite a bit, and he was always engaged with the avant-garde, what was going on at that time. And that's what made him so brilliant, because he reflected back the age to the people living it at that time. He wasn't an historic artist. He wasn't looking back. He was always concerned principally with what's happening today.
A man in his late 60s who wasn't just playing the old tracks, but was making new ones and changing everything. Thank you very much indeed, our arts editor, Will Gompertz. It's a chance now for us to look back at that extraordinary career. David Sillito has been taking a look.
Where do you begin? Because with David Bowie, the music was only the beginning. His appearance, the challenge to sexual norms, the endless reinventions. He was, for many, truly life-changing.
A lot of what I do is in fact very simple. It's just that my choices are very different to other people.
Born David Jones in Brixton in 1947, he left school wanting to work in music. He tried a series of styles before his first hit, Space Oddity.
Ground control to Major Tom.
And when he created the persona of the alien rock star Ziggy Stardust, his place in music history was assured.
Ziggy really sang, screwed up eyes and screwed down hairdo, like some cat from Japan.
And he stunned fans when he then decided to move on and leave Ziggy behind.
Not only is it the last show of the tour, but it's the last show that we'll ever do.
He was a restless innovator who could mix influences from the Velvet Underground, Jacques Brel, American soul, and avant-garde German minimalism.
That's the color of my room.
To the songs of Anthony Newley.
Maybe I was emerging into the era of postmodernism, but I put it down far more to ADD, attention deficiency disorder. I just think that I couldn't concentrate, and I never have been able to concentrate on one thing for very long without getting kind of itchy.
But it wasn't just the music. There were the film roles such as The Man Who Fell to Earth, but more than that, the cultural impact.
What's the name? What's the name? What's the name?
When he first appeared in Ziggy regalia on Top of the Pops, with his arm draped around the back of guitarist Mick Ronson, it was an image that was to some unsettling, to others liberating, especially when he was then quizzed about his sexuality.
No, I lied, actually. I said I was gay, but I was actually bisexual. Well, I had thought of saying I was an existentialist, but I'd realised that I'd been used.
Put on your red shoes and dance the blues.
40 years of experimentation and some of rock's greatest and strangest songs. Everything from The Laughing Gnome to classics such as Life on Mars.
Is there life on Mars?
David Bowie, his influence, that mystique. Music has lost one of its greats.
David Bowie, who has died at the age of 69. That news confirmed to us within the last 20 minutes or so, and obviously much more of it coming up on the programme. Reflections of his life, of his impact on all of us. The time now, though, 17 minutes past 7, and we turn to the Anglican Church. There are 80 million Anglicans in the world, most of their representatives gathering in Canterbury this week to try to establish whether the Church can carry on, really, as a united single body. Gay sex and the role of women, the two big issues that just won't go away. They divide conservative Anglicans, particularly those in Africa, from the more liberal wing of the Church. And as if to underline that division, a group of senior Anglicans calling on the Church today to repent for its treatment of gay and lesbian people. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, is on the line. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
I suppose I ought to start by asking you, though, whether David Bowie was part of your life, Archbishop.
I thought you'd ask that. Yes, he was, and I'm very, very saddened to hear of his death. I remember